Live. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, everybody. Welcome to System.Debug. I am RJ. Obviously, we've got old Megan and old Ryan with us today. Brian, of course, didn't want to hang out with us because he doesn't like us. Maybe. I don't know. There's an excuse there somewhere. Today, we're going to be talking about... What did he do?
I said he's being a road warrior today.
That's true. He is being a road warrior today. He's our man on the road. It's our sales team on the road. But today we're going to be talking about overrides in the JavaScript, JavaScript overrides in the developer console for Google Chrome.
Yeah.
And that's about as fancy as it gets.
it gets fancy because we have our bump.
Should I have been super amped up about that? Should I have been like, tonight on System.Debug?
I don't know, man. I mean, that's kind of Brian's thing. He comes in.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't want to steal his thunder. So I just went smooth sailing with it.
I think you did a great job. I think that was
Thank you.
I think that
appreciate it, Megan. I appreciate that. Yeah. Anyway, so like we said, tonight we're going to be talking about overrides and what the heck that even does. I know back when I was at Map Anything, I barely touched on it. I know Brian uses it a lot now. Do you guys, let's start here. Let's gauge. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I only know what you're talking about because I had a brief discussion with Brian about it earlier. As a matter of fact, I never touched Chrome DevTools really with the intent of actually debugging. I go and I look and I see, oh, this div is loaded or whatever with using inspect, or I see JavaScript errors and consoles, but I don't do the interactive thing like you've been doing over on the 6-Minute Salesforce, the last 3 episodes of 6-Minute Salesforce, which were awesome. And you're doing stuff in there like, I didn't know you could actually get away with that. So
oh, man.
I'm looking forward to this more as a spectator than a co-host because what Brian told me today, I've done a little bit of stuff like that, you know, like with grease monkey scripts and stuff. So I'm really anxious to see what you have on tap for us today. What would you
nice.
Oh yeah, for me, I mean, I've used the dev tools for just the front end side. I have not really used it at all for the topic of the show. So I'm really going to be learning from you, dear. It's going to be
that's awesome.
Teaching today. I'm very excited.
Well, your show.
Yay!
Basically, I'll just say the same thing to both you and Ryan. I'm very glad that the 6-Minute Salesforce episodes helped you guys out because I really, really, really thought Brian was like, hey, you should do some on console inside of Google Chrome. And I was like, oh, I'm just yelling into the void like everyone's already done this before.
No, particularly when you showed the one where first you loaded the inline JavaScript and page and you're like, even if I go and modify it, I can't do it because it's got to refresh. But doing it as a resource, allowing you to be able to edit that, I was like, holy crap, that's actually really cool. I didn't know that. So I figured it would have the same problem. But no, I think that's really cool. So,
I think it's because it actually pulls that locally maybe and uses kind of an override sort of scenario with it. But anyway, yeah, that's basically what we're going to talk about tonight, right? So I guess second question for you guys, since you guys are kind of like the students here, how much do you guys, when you're doing Salesforce dev, right? How much are you guys in the Visualforce and inside of components and things like that doing any kind of, not necessarily external JavaScript, but JavaScript that could essentially be externalized, like libraries and things like that?
All the time. I mean,
okay.
If you're talking about just leveraging external libraries and stuff. And,
yeah, just using like let's say you build a small library that just does like some math stuff essentially, or maybe does some API calls or whatever you would build this library to do. So you guys are using those a lot. What about you, Megan?
Yeah, I'd say pretty frequently. Yeah, I'd say majority of the time. Yeah, never touching the dev tools. Yeah.
I'm actually curious now. How did you guys get around like any kind of issues that cropped up when you were using are you guys just that awesome? Because you might just be really good JavaScript developers. I'm not going to take that away from you, but how did you guys go about debugging that kind of stuff?
Brute force, man. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, it was brute force. You grab the file, change what you need to do, push it back up, wait for it to deploy, rerun the page, do the same thing, rerun the page. I mean, yeah, I haven't had to do anything like that in a while, because I'm trying to rely less and less on that kind of thing, and just rely on like what Lightning gives me out of the gate. But sometimes I have to write some, external type stuff. It was more prevalent when I was doing that in Visual Force.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was brute force kind of process. I knew in Chrome you could do certain things like modify the CSS and see the change there and stuff. I didn't know you could do that by having your JavaScript loaded as a resource, though. That would have saved me quite a bit of time, actually, and I'm feeling kind of foolish for not knowing that.
Definitely don't feel foolish, but I'm kind of like, what I'm feeling right now is that you guys have had a time with this, like a real pain in the butt kind of time with this, when you didn't necessarily need to. And that I feel like I should have done my part. And of course, I mean, Megan, I've only known you for a short amount of time, but Ryan, I mean, I've known you for, I don't know, like a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know how to count. Yeah. But either way, I feel like I probably should have got this across to you guys at some point. I should have let you guys know, like, hey,
you let me down.
You could take that time and cut it in, I don't know, quarters and use that to debug. I don't know. But I feel a little bit bad about that, and I feel like maybe, oh man. Well, anyway, let's remedy that now, right?
Yeah, let's fix that. Show us what we don't know.
So you guys are up to speed so far with what the console can do, right? So I'm gonna try to broadcast if I can try if it'll work. Let's see if I can get my technology. See if I could do my technologies.
Yeah, and meanwhile, while you're doing that, Mark Adcock was in the chat, and he said he's seen people use the CSS before, and it was mind blowing. So I imagine being able to do this with JavaScript is going to blow some people's minds. Yeah.
So that's where I spend a lot of time, is playing with the CSS, especially in the community side, doing a lot of the UX stuff and the UI stuff, and the HTML, going and messing with the resources in terms of images and things like that, but not so much with the JavaScript. So yeah. And by the way, RJ, I was going to say, if only you knew all the things that I was doing with trial and error. Do not blame yourself, because the list is so long.
Just let me know. Like, trust me, I'm more than glad to help. If there's something there. If there's nothing there, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do for you. We're all SOL at that point. I'm sure there's someone out there who can. Can you guys see my screen at all? Just making sure I'm doing this right.
Yep, we're looking at it.
You guys see this? The magic app. So this is the one that I use in all of my little kind of demos that I do, or all of my recent demos, my networking tests, right? And it's got all the stuff. And let me just back up a little bit, right? So you have the page when you go to sources. This is usually where I start. I'm at my console, and you click sources, and that brings you here. And it's not really immediately noticeable here, but overrides is right up here. And you can also see it's kind of where we went to edit some of our other stuff. So we've got our little guy here that's got all our JavaScript in there, right? So you guys are kind of at this point, right? Like, you guys know how to get here and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we're pretty much on the same level, and I hope that everyone who's watching right now, I hope we're all kind of on the same level. If not to self-promote, but go check out the 6-minute Salesforce videos. There's 3 of them I did on the Google Developer Console. I'm sure there's more to come. And side note to all this, if you guys have any suggestions that you'd like for me to do either on 6-minute Salesforce, or if you would like for us to do as a whole on system.debug, feel free to shoot us a tweet and let us know. And also, I don't know if you were inquiring the other day, Megan, but you are more than welcome to help me with the 6-minute Salesforce if you would like.
Excellent. That'd be fun.
Yeah. So if you guys want Megan to do anything on 6 Minute Salesforce, let her know too. So anyway, we know how this works, right? We have our JavaScript. We have our little guy over here, and I'm going to bring this over so we have a fuller view of our JavaScript. And we make a request, and it calls this JavaScript over here, and everything's lovely. So what can we do now if we want to do pretty much anything else, right? We can grab these overrides, and there's nothing here. You look at it, and you're like, oh, crud, there's nothing for me to override. So what you need to do, essentially, is hop in and pick out where your overrides are going to be, right? So just on my desktop, I'm just going to make a new folder. Folder overrides. I hope I'm spelling things right. And I'm just going to select that. And there's absolutely nothing in there. So it tells you right here, just so everyone is well aware, hey, DevTools requests full access because it's not going to let you do it without it. Allow, and then you're good to go. So now you have access to this guy. So again, completely empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this whole thing here. And I'm going to, let's see. I don't have a new Finder window. Just grab a new Finder window. Boop. And then desktop and overrides. What did I want to do here? Oh, I wanted to, of course, run over here. And I've got all the things in the universe running, so ignore that right now.
This is what somebody who actually does work for a living.
No, what are you talking about? I had a Node project like still running.
Nice. Don't you love when you wake up in the morning and you realize that you left your terminal running?
Do it all the time.
Dude, I can't tell you how often I do that. We'll just call this override1.js.
Yeah.
And paste that guy in there. Write it. Close it. We're good to go. So we got this guy here, and now you can see he just pops up. There's no need to do any magic. Everything's just there. So enable local overrides. I probably should have named this exactly what I wanted to, but it doesn't matter right now. We're working with this now. So let's pull this guy back up, and we'll just kind of. I'll see if I can get one of my atoms over here. Oh, there's your face, Ryan.
Hey, it's me. We're going to end up in one of those infinity windows here in a minute if we're not careful.
Maybe. Maybe.
It happens every time you join Uber conference if you've ever used it.
Oh, I haven't yet.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment that guy out. And hopefully this will work for me the first time. Sometimes it gets a little, I'm still pretty fresh at this.
Well, it's fairly new, right? The overrides bit came out, maybe not like the most recent release, but isn't it still kind of recent as far as being able to store your overrides? Or
apparently it's been there for a while. I just hadn't noticed it.
Oh, okay.
But the cool part is it still keeps everything there. And let's see, let me make sure I'm doing this right. No, I didn't do it right. What did I do wrong?
And Brian happens to be popping in and out of the chat, and he said it actually came out in Chrome 65. Bonus points if you even know what version of Chrome you're on now. It's the latest. I have no clue.
I couldn't tell you what version I'm on now, but I know that, what was it? It was 53 that broke everything map-wise because they used the map keyword that we were using in JavaScript. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was somewhere like end of 2016.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Beginning in 2017, so we're probably on like 60 something now. Let's
I'm on 67.
You're on 67?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
not about this Mac. Why did I click about this Mac? I wanted about this Chrome. Google Chrome help. No, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. I don't even know how to get to the version of it.
It's anyway. Under Chrome and about Chrome.
Yeah, look at you, dude. See, you know all the things. Yeah, 67.
Okay, so
nearly up to date. Not really, not fully up to date.
Okay. You need to update.
So, all right, so I guess you were right, Ryan. I was absolutely wrong there. It was Damn, that is pretty new. So either way, we've got this guy here. Sorry, we totally totally derailed there. Totally derailed. What do I want to do here? I want to go to the page, and I'm working with what resources? Networking test. Maybe I forget if I have to rename this. But either way, let's just talk about how this works, right? The overrides, while I'm working through this, is something where you can go and you can have your stuff sitting local, so you don't have to pull it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the idea is that you just want to make some quick changes. You make those quick changes, and everything kind of goes along nice and smoothly. And then when you're finally done with all of your edits, you can actually sit down and say, all right, you know what? I've got everything the way I want it. And let's just say this is the way I actually want it for whatever I want to console be. I don't like the way that this does comments. Maybe 67. Change it. It did. Oh, wow. All right. Then I don't have to use Atom. But maybe this isn't the right URL. Maybe it's testing API. You can change it there and save it. And no matter what happens, you're going to refresh through this, and all the changes are going to stay the same. And you can point to this file and say, hey, this is where all this stuff should go. Okay, all my changes go in. Everything's working just fine. Kill your local overrides and then run through it, and everything should work just fine, like once you pull all the code up. So now the entire idea is you're doing rapid deployment rather than, and it's not even really deployment. You're being more rapid about your deployment though. So you're building these things out, you're fixing it, you're changing it, you're fixing it again, changing it, fixing it again, and then you're done. And then you actually do the full deployment, which we all know on Salesforce takes, depending on what you've got in there, a long time.
Yeah, it can take a while, right?
Let me ask you guys this, right? When you guys were messing around with JavaScript stuff and you had to keep redeploying, like, I want to say what was your average deploy time, but like, do you even remember that anymore? Was it a long time? Was it a short time? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 seconds?
Well, I was always in my sandbox and messing with things. I have no idea. It depended on how angry I was too, for the amount of time that things take. The angrier I got, it seems like the longer things take.
I mean, that's typical. I think that's typical for all of us. That's pretty normal.
A few examples of like what type of scenarios we would use this in.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, actually, let's flip that on its side, right? What were you guys using? And let me see if I can fit it into those scenarios, and then I'll flip it back and build a scenario for you guys. So what kind of scenarios were you guys using JavaScript in that you needed to keep doing that constant deployment?
I had one where we were heavily modifying the functionality of a page. This is pre-Lightning. A lot of interactive, a lot of jQuery, a lot of having to sniff out particular divs, and then provide a function based on when somebody hit enter or when the lost focus on a field, do something else, update another part of the page, etc. So a lot of that was some homegrown JavaScript that we had to, I guess, troubleshoot. And so anytime you added something, you'd have to modify it. And then if it was inline, because we had some pages that were inline, you had to redeploy the Apex page, right? Or, you had to redeploy the resource that had loaded, etc. And it wasn't that it took a long time, because to Megan's point, you're in the sandbox. It's not like you got to run unit tests and all that, right? But what it is, as a developer, we get in these rhythms, and having to stop and deploy and test or retest, and we kind of can break that rhythm sometimes of our, we're really coding away. And anytime you spin cycles on something like that, it's a waste of your time, and it takes more time away. A lot of developers, you'll hear people say, as a developer, you're one track focused and you're working, and the worst thing to do is interrupt a developer who's in the middle of being productive, because it takes them 30 minutes to just dump what they were just working on, however long to focus on your problem, and then 30 minutes to ramp back up again. You're losing 2 hours based on, you know, how many times you interrupt the person a day, right? And
Yeah.
those little things, it may only be a few minutes to copy it, put it in the resource, put it up there or whatever, but it's an interruption.
Gotcha.
It breaks that flow.
So what you're saying is, if I'm hearing you right, and let me just make sure that I am, what you're saying is the important part really for you is less about kind of the time that it takes to go back and forth and do the deploy, fix, deploy, fix. It's more that you just have to make that switch so often, deploy, fix, deploy, fix.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it doesn't help that there's waiting involved, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't help at all. But at the same time, it's a little bit, it's really more, like I said, it's really more the fact that you're context switching a lot.
Yeah, it's akin to being able to run an Apache server locally on your machine, making a change and seeing it change right there, rather than having to make your change and perhaps, if you're in Java, stick it inside of a WAR file and go dump it up into a Tomcat server somewhere else because you don't have one running locally, right? And Salesforce, we don't have a way of running a local instance on our local machine. Right. So yeah, it's easier if it's just right there. It's on my file system. I can edit it. I immediately see it when I refresh, whatever. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's a little faster.
And
That's fair.
I've totally got to agree with you there. You know, it's not about time. It's not about deployments. It's about the fact that, you know, you start digging into it. And the problem is, you know, as you're doing that digging, you know, and you're doing these iterations, that gap, even though it's a short gap, you know, in between, while you're doing this, you know, those gaps are they increase that risk, not to bring in the whole like project terminology, but they're increasing that risk. And you start to get into that cycle where you're spinning, and then you all of a sudden start second guessing yourself. You start bringing in more problems. But if you could start seeing changes right there, like while you're working on something, instead of having to do that wait time, you know, instead of having to be like, well, maybe I should go back, and you don't get to see it right away. I mean, that would stop you from doing all that second guessing, all that rethinking, and make it so that you're not going to, you know, dig yourself into a hole that never needed to exist. I don't know. That's something I personally do a lot, where, you know, I come up with these problems that, you know, I never had to have in the first place.
Okay, that's fair. So again, kind of the same idea, but in reality, there's a little bit more to it on both of your guys' side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I would say is in there, and I think you guys already hit on this. The function first and foremost is that you are going and running this thing kind of locally. Exactly what you said, Ryan. You're taking the time to make this local build so that you can save time later in the future. And it's not really that hard either, right? You're just pulling down your local files, your local JavaScript, things like that. You're shoving them into a folder and you're saying, use these instead.
Yep.
So the rapid kind of iteration that happens there is what you guys essentially are talking about missing, right? You guys are saying, hey, we're spending a lot of time context switching, and we're spending a lot of time with deployment and waiting, deployment, waiting, deployment, waiting. And even if you're doing a little bit of deving in the middle of that, right, you're still not being 100% effective with your time, because you have to get back into the mindset of, okay, now I'm back to dev mode. And now I'm back in admin mode, essentially, to deploy. Now I'm back in dev mode. Now I'm back in admin mode. And you're right. That's annoying, and it's frustrating for a lot of people. Some people can do it. Don't get me wrong. Some people can. But yeah, so this is going to save you from that, because you just sit down with your computer and yourself. You pull your stuff locally. You make a change. You see if it worked. You make a change. You see if it worked. And you're not really context switching anymore. You're really just checking your code, effectively checking your code. Make a change, see if it worked. Make a change, see if it worked. Make a change, see if it worked. And once you've built out that whole thing, and you might not be debugging. You might not be actually trying to troubleshoot anything. You might be building something out. You might have some AJAX calls that you're trying to make, trying to call out to another URL and get some data from that. You can do the very same thing from your local machine. It's not going to change anything if you're doing it locally or not. So you might just be deving this whole entire thing out and saying, all right, I need to build X, Y, and Z functionality into this page. And I know that X and Y are JavaScript. So I'm going to pull that locally. I'm going to rock with that. I'm going to fix that, make that work, build those features. Then when that's done, when everything's all said and done, I'm going to put that up in my resource zip or wherever you had it, right? Then you can go on, and maybe Z was the Salesforce feature. Maybe it was Visual Force table or whatever. Maybe it's a Apex class that you had to write, whatever it may be. And then you can dev that there and build that. I haven't tried, and I think maybe, and I'm pointing over here because that's my screen where Brian James is talking. He might be able to speak to this better than I can, but I've never tried to pull like a Visual Force file locally and work with that on overrides. So I don't even know if that would work.
I don't think that would work.
I can't see how it would, because I imagine there's a lot of rendering server side for Salesforce that it does a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know if he's listening. He's saying, yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes with how long it takes to deploy console code sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, yeah. You're probably not going to be able to do a Visual Force page. But so we're running close on time. So I'll flip a situation to you guys a little differently, right? Let's say you're not even in the Salesforce environment at all. Let's totally abstract Salesforce all the way, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to dev yourself a web page. You're out there, you're a Salesforce developer, but you need to build yourself a web page. You can take yeah. Brian's actually saying what I'm about to say right now. He just said HTML pages you can, but not Visual Force, not with the expression code.
Right.
Yeah, which is what we figured. But anyway, sorry, I keep losing focus. I'm bad at that. Anyway, so you want to build yourself a web page, right? And you don't necessarily want to go edit your code directly on your server. You know, you've got a small page out there, you know, lifeofryan.com or whatever, or ryanheadley.com. I don't remember what your web page is. I'm bad.
It used to be lifeofryan.com because the guy who owns Ryan Headley won't sell it to me.
We got to go find that guy and get him to sell it to you.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm sure Megan knows him probably. She's like, oh, I know that guy. I can get you a license for ryanheadley.com. But anyway, you don't want to keep FTPing your stuff to your server, right? It's ridiculous. So you pull your web page locally and you're editing it, and yeah, sure, you probably run in some Apache stuff on your machine or whatever. But you can also just use Chrome instead of installing like WAMP server or just the full-blown Apache without all the other fun PHP and all that stuff. Whatever. You don't need to necessarily pull all that stuff locally. You just pull the page you're working on locally, pull up your website, tell it to look at that page locally, and then make all the edits to that page. And then when you're done, you're done. You push one time you FTP, everything goes up, you're good. So that's what I would say to try to abstract it from Salesforce.
Am I correct in assuming, though, that like you wouldn't necessarily have to pull your page locally, just the JavaScript that you're working with, right?
Well, whichever. Yeah, I was saying page because I was assuming you were working with HTML at some point. But okay. whatever piece you're working on. So let's say, even more specifically, I want to work on my About Me page because my About Me page is terrible, right? I'll just pull my About Me page .html, .php, whatever it is, pull it down, my HTML page, pull it down, work on it, check it, work on it, check it, work on it, check it, work on it, check it. Oh, it's done. Okay, one FTP up, I'm good to go.
And then it's finished, yeah.
And it's done.
Yeah.
And you could do that. You could definitely do that in the regular like live edit stuff, like when you're editing just the source code of the site on Google Chrome. But if you hit refresh, it's gone.
Then it's back to what it loads otherwise.
Yeah. And now you have to go do all that fun stuff.
Oh, sorry. My question with that is, so with that overrides, and you may not know the answer because you said you're kind of new to it too. Maybe Brian's in the chat; he can answer. So if I want to override, networking test.js, and I have a local override for that, does it have to be called .js, and does it have to have the same file name so Chrome knows which file to override, or is it keeping track of that somewhere? Like I'm working on network tests, but this is called overrides. Load overrides instead.
So far, I've always had it that way, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
This is the first time I tried it without doing it that way, and I flat out fell on my face. So I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. And
so it's got to be the same name. Okay.
Brian just said yes, and I'm assuming he's saying yes to the thing that we were just talking about because he said a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. New York City.
Yeah. So cool.
It looks like to remain the same because the code calls the files. Yes. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it looks like the chat's pretty active. Brian's doing a good job answering questions.
Yeah.
Yes, we have Brian around in the chat.
Where did everyone come from tonight? What happened?
Thank you, Brian. I don't know. I think it's just really an interesting topic. I actually don't know the answer. I actually think everybody's here for our new co-host Megan because she knows everybody.
Dude, that is
Megan knows everybody.
It's so true.
But anyway, so yeah, Brian's in the chat. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, share it out, tweet us all on Twitter. We've got Megan SF Rocks. Is that what it is? I never look at that.
Megan SF on Twitter and MeganRocksSF.com.
Yeah, that's it.
Rocks SF. That's what it is.
And we got the infamous RJ. I'm pointing at the screen like everybody knows who I'm pointing at. But we got at the infamous RJ. We got at USBrian28 on Twitter and myself, Life with Ryan. But you don't need to follow me. I'm not that interesting.
So, yeah. I think you and Megan probably have the most amount of followers out of all of us. So don't say that you're not interesting because you're interesting.
I'm interesting. All right. Do we have anything else you want to add to that to close us out?
I was going to say, just as a side note, I'll actually do a follow-up video to this for the 6-minute Salesforce where we actually dive in and I won't fall flat on my face like I did trying something new live on air, which is always, that's the best place, right? Try it live, try it in production. Always test your code in production.
Trial by fire. Absolutely.
Did you guys talk about that in the no-nos? I forget.
Yeah. Oh, you know
Testing in production.
Last episode we did talk about no-nos, but I don't think you
did.
Did we broach the don't do it in production? Yeah, we did.
Just in production.
We had to stop doing
it
in production.
Always code in production, says Brian. I feel like I talk about that so much with so many people that it's hard to keep track of like the last person I heard say, "Oh yeah, test code in production" as a joke. But yeah, I assume you guys talked about it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we mentioned it at one point.
Well, you
anyway,
code in prod, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh man, Salesforce locks you guys down, right?
Yeah.
I always forget about that.
You code that, but
yeah, you gotta code it, and then you have to what is it?
Deploy.
Is it just deploy? I thought no, change set is the other thing. Never mind. I was thinking about a change set.
Well, you can add your code to a change set too. Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to screw around with Ant and stuff like that, yeah, build a change set. Otherwise, people are using Ant.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I think with that, we are 3 minutes past 7. So we thank everybody for hanging out and chatting. Thank you, Brian, for doing that. Again, like, subscribe, share.
Thanks,
Brian. We want to do what you want us to do. So tell us. Don't be afraid. Just send us a message and be like, I think you guys need to do a subject to this. Or I want to see RJ do 6-minute Salesforce on something else. Great. Just send it to us. We're very open to that. So.
And thank you, RJ, for the educational half hour. This has been fantastic. I've always wondered what the add the file stuff does, but I haven't wanted to ruin anything. So thank you.
Dude. Oh man, that's the thing though. As a ending show note, try everything, guys. Try everything because you can't really blow up computers these days.
Well, I just didn't know what adding the folder would do. Like, what is adding a folder gonna do? Everything else I've played with. That's how I figured the rest of it out.
Nice.
There you go. All righty, man. I'm hitting the bump button.
All right, bump us out.
And you know what? I got to figure out how to stop this thing. That's the funny thing. Everybody's sticking around. Yeah, but my mouse has like disappeared. So hey, everybody, we're still here until I can get my mouse over here.
I don't even do this.
It's totally not working, so I'm gonna Alt Q this thing. I'll see you guys later. That's still not working. My mouse does not work. Ryan. This is so not funny. It's over here. No, it's not over here. Now my screen locked. So, hey, everybody just hang out while Ryan tries to figure out what's wrong with his machine. There it is. It came back.
You found it.
Bye.
See you guys.